Hi, I am Thilagavathi Murugesan. I am a lecturer of mathematics at Colorado State University, Pueblo. My lecture today is on problem solving. So let's start with this one. Example 1. Find the dimensions of the rectangle if the length is to be 10 feet more than the width and the perimeter is to be 220 feet. So always know for all of the story problems what you have to do. You have to read the problem really good. That's the first step. Second step, you have to make sure you understand the problem. And then third step, you have to draw a picture or you have to use a formula to set up an equation, and then you have to solve these problems. So let's do that. So find the dimensions of the rectangle. So let me draw the picture here, a rectangle here. So find the dimensions of this rectangle if the length is to be 10 feet more than the width. So we don't know what the width is, so let's keep this as W. So length is 10 feet more than the width. So 10 more than the width. So that's the length. And what else is given? The perimeter is to be 220 feet. Perimeter. What is the formula for the perimeter of a rectangle? The perimeter is you have to add all of the sides. So here we have, this is also length, W plus 10. This is width, the same, W. So perimeter is always 2 times length plus 2 times width, correct? 2 lengths, 2 times length, this plus this, 2 times length, and this times this plus this, 2 times width. So now what's your length here? Here you are asked to find out what's your length and what's your width. That's the question here. And also you are given this is equal to, you are given the perimeter is equal to 220 feet. And we are going to find out what your length is and what your width is. So this is your length. Let me mark this as L so that you will know what we are, when you use W plus 10 for L, you will know. So let me substitute because your length is W plus 10. So let us substitute length as W plus 10. Make sure you put a parenthesis. That's very, very important. You have to put a parenthesis here because you have a W plus 10, not just one term. You have 2 terms and 2 times of length plus 2 times width is equal to 220. So now we set up the equation. Now we have to solve. And we can we solve for W from this equation? Yes, we can. This is an equation. And the variable, it's only one variable you see, right? W. And we can solve this, solve for W. Solve this equation for W. So how do we solve this equation? Here this is 2 times W plus 10. So do you see why we put the parenthesis? It's very, very important. You have to do that. So when you distribute, what do you get? 2W plus 20 plus this is here plus 2W is here is equal to 220. So now we have to simplify, and first we are going to solve for W. So 2W plus 2W. We can add those two. They are like terms, so we can add those two. That's going to be 4W. And then plus 20 is equal to 220. Now what do we have to do to solve for W? We have to subtract 20 both sides. So now you get this side is 200 and this side, this cancels out, right? So this is 4W. So now we have 4 times W is equal to 200. That's what we have. Right? So now we can solve for W by dividing both sides by 4. So W is equal to, for W over 4 is W W is equal to 200 divided by 4 is 50. So your width is 50. And what's your question? What was the question here? The question was find the dimensions of the rectangle. So right after you solve any equation, then you have to go back to the problem again, read the question again, and then answer appropriately. Otherwise, you'll know if you just circle this one as an answer, then you're missing another part, right? So now we found one answer, that is the width, and the other dimension is length. So we have to find the length. So when W is equal to 50, what's your length? So this is one of your answers. So length is equal to, length is W plus 10, width plus 10. So this is 50 plus 10, that's going to be 60. So your length is 60 feet. So your answer is, length is 60 feet and your width is 50 feet. So this is how you solve these type of problems. And it's always easier for you if you draw a picture and write down what is given and use the given conditions and solve the equation, and then go back to the problem again, read the question again, and then answer appropriately. Like a width in this problem, width is equal to 50 feet, length is equal to 60. So that's your answer. Okay. So now let's do another problem. All of the problems you are going to see are different from each other. So make sure you understand each of these problems. Example 2. Let me read the question. The sum of two consecutive integers is 147. Find the two integers. So that's the problem. So here, sum of two consecutive integers. So you have to know what the definition for consecutive integers. So let's say that you have an integer n. N is an integer. Okay. What is the consecutive integer to n? Let's say, for example, 3. 3 is an integer, right? 3. Let's say 3. What is the consecutive integer to 3? 4. So if I say 11 is an integer, what is the consecutive integer? 12. So you're adding what? 1, right? So the next number. So you have to add 1 with an integer to get the next integer. So the consecutive integer to this n is n plus 1. So this is one integer, another integer is, the consecutive integer is n plus 1. So now here the condition is, there is something given, right? The sum of these two is equal to 147. Find the two integers. So let's write down that condition. So sum means you have to add those two. So first one plus n plus 1 is equal to 147. The question is find these two integers. So what do we have to find? We have to find n first and then just add 1 to get the other integer. So we have to solve this equation for n. So we have like terms, n plus n to n plus 1 is equal to 147. Now we are solving for n, so we need n alone on one side. So we have to move everything else to the other side. So we have to subtract 1 both sides. So you get here this 0, 1 minus 1 is 0. Here we have 2n. Those two cancels out. So here we have 146. And we are solving for n. So we have to divide both sides by 2. So when you divide both sides by 2, 2n over 2, this is just n. We can cancel only if it is a product. That's another thing you have to always remember. If there is addition or a subtraction in between these two, you have to stop and think for a second before you do anything else. Only when it's product we can divide this. So now it is 2 and 2 cancels out. So here we can divide. This one is 73. So n is equal to 73. Like I always say, previously said, don't stop here. Like circle this one and say that that's your answer. Go back to the problem and read the question again. So here the question is, find the 2 integers. 2 integers. So we have to give your answer. 73 is 1 integer, right? And here the next one, the other one is going to be 74. That's your answer. The 2 integers are 73 and 74. So that's the solution for this problem. Okay, let's move on to another problem. Shane worked 16 hours more this week than last week. If he worked 25 hours this week, how many hours did he work last week? So Shane worked 16 hours more this week than last week. So we don't know how many hours he worked last week. So what do we have to do? We have to set up a variable and then we have to use these conditions to solve this problem. So we do not know how many hours he worked last week. So let's say that he worked last week X hours. Okay. So he worked 16 hours more this week. So this week he worked 16 hours more than the X hours. So what do you have to write? 16 more than the last week. So X plus 16 hours. Right? Okay. And then it's given. If he worked 25 hours this week, how many hours did he work last week? So this week, if he worked 25 hours this week, that means this is given as 25. So that means X plus 16 is equal to 25. Correct? He worked 25 hours this week. So X plus 16 is equal to 25. So the question is, how many hours did he work last week? So last week, what do we have to find out? What your X is? We have an equation. This is a linear equation, right? In X, we have to solve for X. We have to solve this one. Subtract 16 both sides. So you get 16 minus 16 is 0. That cancels out. 25 minus 16, 9. So he worked last week 9 hours. So the answer is 9 hours. That's your answer. Okay. So let's do another problem. Example 4. Let me read this problem. Two angles are supplements of each other. The larger angle is 12 degrees more than 3 times the smaller. Find the measure of each angle. So you are asked to find the measure of each angle, but other conditions are given. So those two angles are supplements of each other. That means when you add them together, it is equal to 180 degrees. Another condition is given. The larger angle is 12 degrees more than 3 times the smaller. So we don't know how much is the smaller one is, right? How many degrees the smaller angle is. So let us say that the smaller angle is equal to x. X degrees. So the larger angle is 12 degrees more than 3 times the smaller. Okay, you have to set up this one right. So you see 12 degrees more than 3 times the smaller. So you have to be very careful when you write this expression. Okay. So now we have the smaller angle x, larger angle 3x plus 12, and another condition is given. These two angles are supplements of each other. That means the sum of these two is equal to 180 degrees. So add these two, x plus 3x plus 12. The smaller one plus the larger one. The sum is 180 degrees. Now you are asked to find the measure of each angle. So here you have an equation in x. We can solve for x. So that would give you the smaller angle. Once you solve for x, we can go back and substitute here to find the larger angle. So let's do that. So x plus 3x, these two are the only two x terms I see, like terms. So 3x plus x is 4x plus 12 is equal to 180. So now we are solving for x. We need x alone. Let's move this 12 to the other side. Now we have 4x is equal to 10 minus 2, 8, 6, 1, right? 168. We are solving for x. Divide both sides by 4. So you get 4x over 4 is 1. So 1x. So x is equal to 42. Correct? X is equal to 42. That means smaller angle is equal to 42 degrees. Smaller angle is 42 degrees. Can we stop here? No. We have to find the larger angle. This is only one of those answers. So we have to find the larger angle. So the larger angle is, see here you can use this one. Larger angle is, you can substitute in the place of x, substitute 42. You can find out, or because the sum is 180, right? The sum is 180. So if this is 42, how do we find the other one? 180 minus 42 will give you the other angle, correct? So you can do in either way. So, but I am going to use that one. So 3 times larger angle is 3 times x. X is 42 plus 12. Okay, so here you have to be very careful. 3x plus 12. So we have to multiply this first and then you have to add. So larger angle is 138 degrees. Okay. solution. Okay. So it's always you have to read the problem, write down what is given, the conditions. If you don't know something, you can keep a variable and then set up the equation, solve for one, and if you're asked to find out just that, that's your answer. Otherwise you have to find anything else, you have to go back to the problem again and you have to find out what else you can find out, what else you are asked to find out, and you have to find the other one also. Okay, so this is your answer for this problem. So let's do another one. So example 5. Susan bought a dress for $45. If the total cost of the dress with tax was $47.88, what sales tax rate did she pay? So the cost of the dress is $45. Right? Total cost, that is with tax, is $47.88. This is given. And you are asked to find out what the tax rate is. So we don't know what the rate is. So let's keep that as X%. The rate of the tax is X%. Okay. So cost of the dress plus the tax is equal to 47.88. So we have to set up this equation. So let us set up the equation. So 45 plus, this is the original price of the dress, plus the tax. How do we find the tax? For example, if it is 5%, how do we find the tax? This is 5 for each $100, right? $5 for $100. So we have to find out how much tax was for $45, right? This is the price of the dress. So we have to find out for $45 what is the tax was. Okay, so this is for $100. So we have to add the tax for $45. So it will be 0.01 times X, right, times 45. This is equal to cost plus the tax is equal to 47.88. Okay, so now we have to solve this equation. So now let us, because here you have X here, so let's just write down this, multiply this. This would give you this, and this side we have 47.88. So now we are solving for X. So subtract 45 both sides. So now this 2 cancels out, and here we have 0.45x is equal to, here when you subtract you get 2.88. Now we are looking for epsilon, so divide both sides by 0.45, correct? And now we have to, this over this would become 1. So now x is equal to, you can find out by using your calculator or just doing the division. You can find out that this is equal to 6.4. Okay, so what was the question? The question was what the tax rate was. The tax rate was X%. So your answer is 6.4%. That's your answer. Let me read this problem. Cindy invested $11,000 for 1 year, part at 8% and part at 11%. If she earned a total interest of $970, how much was invested at each rate? So let me write down what is given first. This is what you will be also doing whenever you read problems like this. Write down what's given, and then if you have to do a chart, do a chart. It would make it easier for you to solve these problems. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do too. So she invested $11,000. Let me write it here first. $11,000 she invested for 1 year. Okay, and how she invested this amount? She invested this one, part of this amount, 8%. So part of this amount, 8%. Let me write it here, the rate here. So part, we don't know how much amount she put it for this rate, 8%. And the part at 11%. So she's putting some money here. The rest she's putting with this 11% rate. Okay. If she earned a total interest of $970, how much was invested at each rate? How much was invested at each rate? So we don't know how much she invested here and the rest here, right? So what do? Let's keep one as X dollars. Okay. And the other one is going to be the rest. So if the total is this, if she invested X dollars here, how much she'll be investing here? This would be total minus this, right? So 11,000 minus X. So let me do the chart here. That would make it easier for you to see. So, so the rate, the principal amount, the time, and we are talking about the interest, right? So let's do this X dollars at 8%. So she's investing X dollars at 8%. 8% is what? Out of for $100, it's $8. So that's what it means. 8%. 8 for out of $100. So 0.08. The time, how many years? 1 year. And then the second part is this one. We talked about this one at 11%. She's going to invest the rest. Correct? So that's the 11,000 minus X. Correct? So let's write it here. $11,000 minus X. What is the rate? 0.11. 11%. So that's 0.11. How many years? This is also for 1 year. And now what is given? What else is given here? Let me read here. Read it here. Let me see. If she earned a total interest of $970. So the total interest, she's going to get some interest here for this one. She's going to get interest here for this one. The total interest is given. Right? The total interest is $970. And then you are asked to find out how much was invested at each rate. So let's solve this problem. So here you have the amount, rate, and you know the time, can we find out the interest? What is the formula for the interest? The interest is P times R times T. I is equal to principal amount, the rate times time. That is the formula we are going to use. So for this one, for this amount, we are going to find the interest. For this one, at this rate, we are going to find the interest. This one, at this rate, we are going to find the interest. The sum, the total interest is given. So this plus this is equal to that. So let's do that. So x times P times R times T is your interest for this. So x times 0.08 times 1. So let's write down that. When you multiply that, you get this. And then here again, P times R times T, you get the interest. So here we have 0.11 times 11,000 minus x. I'll make it a little bit bigger here. So 11,000 minus x. Okay. So, and we have the total interest is this, $970. Here the total principal amount was 11,000, right? The total interest she got was 970. So now let us set up the equation. How to set up this equation? This interest plus this interest is this, the total interest. So this is your equation. Correct? So now we have to solve for x, and we have to combine all of the x's together and the constants to the other side and solve. So how to do that? So this is 0.08x. Here we have to distribute this. This would be 121 minus 0.11x is equal to 970. So now we have 0.0x here minus 0.11x. So those two are like terms, we can combine them. When you subtract, you get negative 0.03x. And then we have this here. Let me write one more step here. And then now we have to subtract this. So this is more than this. So when you subtract, you have to subtract from here, and then you have to put the appropriate sign. So now we have negative 0.03x is equal to, when you subtract, you get negative 240. Okay. So we have negative 0.303x is equal to negative 240. Now what do we have to do? We have to divide both sides by negative 0.03, divide both sides by this side by negative 0.3. Now this and this will get cancelled out, right? And you get x alone. So this would give you x is equal to, when you divide that negative 240 by negative 0.03, you get positive, right? Negative over negative is positive. So 240 divided by 0.03, that is going to be 8,000. Okay. So we found x. X is equal to 8,000. What's your x? X is at this rate 8%, correct? So we found one part of the amount she invested. And here the question was, how much was invested at each rate? At each rate. So we have to find out the other one also. How much was invested at 11%? So how do we find that? This is x. This is 11,000 minus x. So what is 11,000 minus x? 11,000 minus 8,000, correct? That would give you 3,000. So now we found out how much she invested in each rate. So you can write she invested $8,000 at 8% rate, and she invested $3,000 at 11%. Okay, so that's your answer. Okay. Okay, next problem is a mixture problem. Let me read this problem. A 50% sulfuric acid solution is mixed with a 20% sulfuric acid solution. How much of each should be used to make 12 liters of a solution that is 30% acid? So here first is a 50% solution is mixed with 20% solution, and the total amount they are getting is how many liters? 12 liters. When they mix up those two, we don't know how many liters of each of those to be mixed, they mixed with, but they are getting 12 liters of a solution. So let's set up this problem. So let me do the chart again. This would make the problem easier to solve when you do this. Otherwise you'll be going back to the problem again and again, reading the problem again and again. So this would make it easier. Okay. So let's do the strength of the solution, and then how many liters of each, and then let's find out the amount. So first solution was 50% solution, 50%, correct? 50% solution. So it's going to be 0.50. And then the second one, this one is mixed with 20% solution, correct? And when they mix up these two, they are getting how many liters? 12 liters of, what is the strength of that solution? What solution they are getting? 30%. You all see that? This is how you set up this problem. 50% solution is mixed with 20% solution to get a 30% solution of 12 liters. And here the question is, how much of each should be used to make 12 liters? So how much of each should be mixed to get 12? So do we know how many liters here? No. So let's keep that as X. And the total is 12 liters. So how much of this one would be? 12 minus X. Total minus the other one would give you this one, correct? And then next let's find out how much. So the strength is the 50% of X liters. So what would be the amount? For 1 liter, it's 0.50. For 2 liters, you multiply by 2. For 10, you multiply by that, right? So here we have X. So 0.50 times X. Okay. And here the same thing. The strength is 20%. How many liters? 12 minus X liters. So we have to multiply these two to get that. So 0.20 times 12 minus X. Correct? And here, what would be the total? After you mix this one with this one, what do you get? This is the strength and these many liters of the total, and this is the solution they get after they mix these two. So 0.30 times 12. So when this is mixed with this, you get this. This plus this is equal to this. That's the equation we are going to use, correct? you have to set up that equation. So 0.50 x plus 0.20 times 12 minus x is equal to 0.30 times 12. Okay. So now let's solve this problem. So here we have to distribute, of course, because you have two terms inside and this is a common, so we have to distribute. Combine these two x terms. So combine these two together. 0.50x minus 0.20x is minus 0.30x. Correct? 0.5 minus 0.2, 0.3. And then we have this. Let me write one more step here. So now we have to subtract this 2.40 both sides. So now you have 0.30x is equal to, subtract 1.20. So now divide both sides by 0.3. So you get epsilon. So now you get, when you divide these two, you get 4. Right? So x is equal to 4. What is your x? That is those many liters of 50% solution. We are asked to find how many liters of each added to get 12 liters. So first we found x, we have to find the other one. Other one is going to be 12 minus x. So 12 minus 4 is, let's find out. So x is equal to 4. 12 minus x is 12 minus 4. 12 minus 4 is nothing but 8. Okay. So your answer is 4 liters of 50% solution and 8 liters of 20% solution. That's your answer. Okay. Let's do another problem. So here let me read this problem first. Two joggers start at the same point, at the same time, same point, at the same time, and jog in opposite directions. So one goes this way, another one is going this way. Homer jogs at 5 miles per hour. So Homer, let's say this is Homer jogging this way, starting from here, he's going this way. Homer jogs at 5 miles per hour. 5 miles per hour. While Francis jogs at 3 1/4 miles per hour. So Francis jogs at 3 1/4 miles per hour. How far apart they will be in 1 1/8 hours. So how far they are going to be apart. So this person is going away, so he's going to reach in one point in 1 1/8 hour. And Francis is going this way, he's going to be somewhere in 1 1/8 hours. So how far they are apart. So let's say the time is given. How many hours? So it's 1 1/8 hours. So how far they are going to be apart. That means you have to find the distance from here to here, correct? You have to find from here to here, then you are done. So how to find out how far they are apart? How to find that distance? So can we find this distance first and this distance again afterwards? And then when you, because we are looking for the total distance, right? then you have to add these two to get the distance. Correct? So let's do the chart again. That would make it easier for you to see. So let's say this is a Homer and Francis. Homer jogs 5 miles per hour. What is that? That is the rate, right? Rate per hour. Francis jogs 3 1/4 miles per hour. So that's there. And how many hours they are jogging? 1 1/8. Correct? Now you are asked to find out the total distance of from how far they are. So we have to find the total distance from the starting point, the distance of where Francis is, the distance of where Homer is, and add them up. So what do you have to do? What is the formula here? Rate, you know the rate, you know the time. We are trying to find the distance. Distance is equal to rate times time. Distance is equal to rate times time. So we have to find out the distance here. So rate times time, you have to multiply these two to get the distance for Homer, multiply these two to get the distance for Francis, and add them up. You get the answer. So 5 times. What is 1 1/8? Let's change it into a fraction. It would be easier. 1 1/8 is 9/8. Correct? So 5 times 9/8. 5 times 9/8 is 45/8. And then rate times time again. 3 1/4. What is 3 1/4? 3 1/4 is 13/4. Correct? This is same as 13/4. So 13/4 times 9/8. When you multiply these two, you get 107. Multiply across, right? Whenever you multiply the fractions, you multiply across. So that's going to be 117 over 32. This times this, this times this. Here again like this times this times this. So now we found the distance for Homer and distance for Francis, and we are asked to find the total distance. We have to add these two. So we get the total distance is 45 over 8 plus 117 over 32. Now how to find this one? Common denominator. Common denominator is 32. So here what do we have to do? Here we have to multiply and divide by 4 to make the denominator 32. So let me write this very clear here, 4 over 4. So now you have 32 here, 32 here. Let's multiply this. Correct? This times this is this, 4 times 8, this over this. So 297 over 32 is equal to 9 and 9, 32. So 180 over 32 plus 117 over 32, common denominator 32, 180 plus 117, 297 over 32. So you got the answer, but let's write this as a mixed number. So this would give you 32 goes in 297 9 times. The remainder is 9. So 9 over 32. So your answer is, they are 9 and 9, 32 miles apart. Okay. In 1 and 1/8 hours. That's your answer. Example 9. a train traveling at 40 miles per hour leaves for a certain town. So a train traveling 40 miles an hour leaves for a town. This is the train. 3 hours later, a car traveling at 50 miles per hour. Car traveling 50 miles per hour for the same town and arrives at the same time. So it starts at the same point, goes to the town, okay, but it travels 50 miles per hour. If both the train and the car traveled in a straight line, how far is the town from where they started? How far is the town from where they started? That means you are asked to find out the distance. Correct? These two are the same. Correct? So, how to solve this problem? Here you are given like this car, after 3 hours the train started, right? The car travels after 3 hours. The train started traveling. So, do we know the time for the train? How many hours it took for the train? No, we don't know. So, let's keep for the train, let's say it X hours. It took for the train in the speed of 40 miles per hour, and it took X hours. And the car, it says here in the problem, I am going to back to the problem, 3 hours later, a car traveling, starting from the same point, right? Going to the same town. So, how many hours that would be? X minus 3 hours, correct? So, now what are we asked to find out? We are asked to find out how far is the town from where they started. So, this is what we are asked to find out. So, just to look at the problem, think what is given, what are we trying to find out, okay. So, here is the distance here, and is this one the same? Are these two the same? Yes, it is, right? Starting the same point, going to the same town. So, the distance here for the train and for the car, both are the same. Your rate is given and the time is given. What is the formula? The distance. To find the distance is equal to rate times time. So, here, and what's here the time? The time is X hours for the train. For the car, it is X minus 3 hours. And what's the speed? 50 miles per hour. What is the distance? Distance is rate times time. For the train, to reach that town, the distance for the train is 40 times X, rate times time for the train. For the car, rate times time. And just now we talked about the distance. The distance is going to be the same for this and this, for the train and the car, from the starting point to the point where they stopped, right? So, the distance here is same as the distance there. So, what do we have to do? Equate, because they are the same. So, let's do that. So, let me write it here. So, 40x is equal to 50 times x minus 3, because the distance is the same. Now, we have to solve this equation first. So, here what do we have to do? We have to distribute 50. So, this would give you 50x, 50 times negative 3 minus 50 times 3 is 150. So, 40x is this Now we are solving for x. So subtract 40x, or let's subtract 50x here, so that the constant will be there. It doesn't matter how you do it, as long as you do it right, you'll get the same answer, correct answer. So now we subtracted 50x, both sides, 40 minus 50, 40x minus 50x, negative 10x is equal to, what do we have here? These two cancelled out, so this one would be negative 150. Now we are solving for x, negative 10. Divide both sides by negative 10 to get x alone. So now you have x is equal to, what is this? Negative over negative positive, correct? 150 over 10, 15. And like I always said, don't circle there, circle that one, and then say that that's your answer. You have to always go back to the problem and check what the question was, and then give your answer. That's very, very important. So we got x is equal to 15. What was the question here? The question was, let me read the question. How far is the town from where they started? So we got x is equal to 15 here. How far the town is from where they started, the train and car. So what is the how far? We have to answer for what? The distance. So we are not done yet here, right? So what is the distance? How far? So we have to find out. This is equal to what? We have this for here. Distance is, for the train it's 40x, for the car it's this. These two are the same. You can use either one of these ones because they are the same, right? In this problem they are the same. Each problem is different. So here we can substitute for x as 15 here, or you can substitute x as 15 here. You will get the same answer, okay? Because in this problem the distance for the train and the car, it's the same. So let me use the first one, 40 times x, rate times time, right? Distance is rate times time. So 40 times 15 is 600. So the town is 600 miles from where they started. That's your answer. Okay? Okay. So let's move on to a different type of a problem. Like I said, all of these problems are different from each other. And you will definitely see similar problems on the quiz or exam, and also on the final exam. So you have to know how to solve all of these problems, different types of problems. Okay. Well, thank you.